will keep the introduction very short so that we can get to the lady of the hour, Christine Figgener. But hi, everybody. Just in case this is your first time joining us, my name is Brooke. I am the founder of Rewildology. And I actually met Christine, gosh, how many years ago was it? You were part of the Costa Rica series that we did back in the episode 50s. And by the way, the show is now released over 220 episodes. So it was years ago. So and Christine has come on multiple times. And so I'm so happy and excited that she is featured and that she wrote this amazing book for us to read, which we are going to dive into today. My Life with Sea Turtles, a marine biologist's quest to protect one of the most ancient animals on Earth. So a little bit about, for those who don't know, marine biologist, has her PhD, been in Costa Rica since 2007, studying sea turtles and promoting their conservation, and has become quite a figure online. And I think that because of you, Christine, sea turtle conservation has reached an entire different level because of your dedication. So excited to be diving into it today. Yeah, so first, before I move any further, let me just switch it over to Katie really fast for her to introduce herself, because she is our Rewildology Book Club moderator, and she will be doing most of the talking today when I'm not going to be talking much. But yeah, so Katie, I will just pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brooke. I'm so excited to be here and to meet you, Christine, and of course, be part of this book club and have all of you here today. I know some of you have read the book, some of you have just started reading it. This is one I'm super excited to discuss because I happen to work for a nonprofit called Ocean First Institute. I'm the director of conservation over here. So most of my stuff is focused on sharks and penguins, but I just saw 2 mating sea turtles for the first time ever in the ocean last week down in Florida. And I had just read that chapter about mating and I was like, oh my gosh, like I saw them. And so I have so many questions, Christine, for you, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. So really excited to be here and to help kind of moderate. I have some questions from a question bank that some of us have submitted in advance. And then we also will get to have chance for everybody that's tuned in here as well to ask questions too. Brooke, are there any other guidelines or rules you want to go over before we jump into questions?
So they're pretty self-explanatory. Just be kind of respectful and just keep the conversation onto the topic today. We don't need to go off on left field. It's okay if we go down tangents. Let's just try to keep it rounded if we can. And if you want to talk to Christine directly, just raise your hand. There's that little hand function down at the bottom. Raise your hand, and then we'll call on you. Katie will call on you. And if you're feeling a little shy or would like us to ask it on your behalf, that is perfectly fine. Please put it in the chat, and we will ask for you. So, and this meeting is being recorded. You all got the notification, but just letting you know too. So, but with that, Katie, you go ahead and take over, and everybody, let's have a great conversation today.
Awesome. I'm so excited to ask our first question to you, Christine. So obviously, My Life with Sea Turtles is such a fascinating book, perfect summer read. I need to know what inspired you to write this book. How did you get here?
Yeah, it is kind of a funny, how this book came about. So maybe I don't know if I've ever actually told that story anywhere in the podcast, but during my PhD in the US in 2019, that was like the year I was trying to finish up, I don't know who of you have a degree, thesis, whatever. It's like the crunching period where you have very little time. And I got approached by a university press publisher. She just wanted to meet with me and see, if I've ever thought about writing a book. And I was like, actually, no. Am I not too young to write a book? I don't know. It's like, it doesn't feel right that in my age, I should already be writing a book. She was like, well, just think about it because, I don't know, what would it be that you would be writing about? And I was like, well, sea turtles, of course. But, I wouldn't even know how to go about it. And I said, you know what? I am in the middle of my PhD, so no time to even think about it. Well, I finished my PhD. graduated in December 2019. And well, I guess we all knew what happened. 3-4 months later, pandemic happened and my life completely turned around. I started working for a foundation in the US that in the beginning I was supposed to be relocating, but long story short, I ended up being full-time in Costa Rica again, working remotely. And in this very house where I'm sitting right now, there were people living with me because we were trying to create a social bubble to be out on the beach, continuing our work. And I was going crazy because I was sitting here at my little desk. People were all around me and I literally needed to get out of here. And so I rented an Airbnb, and just for lack of other stuff to do, I was thinking, well, there was this lady that was asking me about a book. So how would I even write a book, and how would I try and why would I write it? I mean, what is the message that I'm trying to get across? And also how, because I am quite honest, I don't like most of the nonfiction stuff. So I love reading. I'm an avid reader, but I'm really not big into nonfiction because I think even, and please forgive me because I know it's a super important book, even books that are super important, like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, it's tough material. It's not something that I'm sitting down and I'm reading through it in one because I'm also enjoying it, but it's really, it's a lot. One author though that was always very dear to my heart is Jane Goodall. I think she is an incredible writer. So that was one of, even in German, I had it as a German translation, one of her books. And she did this incredible thing where she would be interweaving anecdotes, of her being in the field with the actual work that she did on the chimpanzees. And that was always my big kind of, I don't want to say I'm writing like Jane Goodall, but that was kind of what I was at least trying to envision and inspiring to. And so I was sitting there in my Airbnb trying to write in English because I was approached by this university press person, and it wasn't really flowing. I also haven't really written anything other than science in a really long time, and so it was really frustrating. And I remember one day I was lying in my hammock being very frustrated and scrolling on my phone through my emails, and I had a email in my inbox from a German, and the subject line was, "Hey, are you interested in writing a book about sea turtles?" I was literally in that moment in this Airbnb trying to write a book, right? So I was like, okay, this is crazy serendipity. I don't know. So I wrote this lady back. I said, well, I don't know if you believe me, but I'm actually trying. And she was, well, send me over what you've got. So I translated the entire outline that I had kind of thought about, and what I had already started writing, I kind of, translated it and then kept on writing it in German. All of a sudden, it just all came together. And so I wrote her, or like sent her, this writing sample, which ended up being, at least in the shortened version, the prologue of the book. So if, in case you were wondering what it was. And within 2 days, I had a contract, I had everything set up, and that book was standing. So that was kind of how it came about. And I mean, the reason I'm writing this book, or I wrote this book, is that I feel that sea turtles are maybe not as, I mean, they are charismatic, but I think they're not as easily accessible maybe as all the furry mammal animals, so I feel there is a lot more distance that we have to non-mammal animals. And it is also a marine topic, right? So marine conservation is very different from, I think, any type of terrestrial conservation. And a lot of the things that are happening now to our sea turtles are very different from 20 years ago when I started. And most of them are somehow related to every single one of us and how we live our lives. And so I thought, if I can make people fall in love with sea turtles and kind of see them a little bit differently through this book and do their part to help them, that is definitely worth my while. And of course, make it in a way, it's not written for scientists, right? It's written for anybody that is somehow interested in this book, that is wanting to have an easy access. There's quite a bit of info still in it if you pay attention. I mean, I really had a whole list of facts I wanted to kind of get into the book, and always was looking of how I can best place it without you guys even noticing that you learned something right now about sea turtles, pretty much. And that's actually the way of how I like to learn and read. I mean, science fiction is probably one of my favorite genres. Michael Crichton, an excellent science fiction author. So he, also was able to kind of, use good, valid information and just kind of, spin it into some crazy tale. But yeah, so this is kind of how. Sorry, that was a long answer to your short question, I guess.
I love it so much, but that's what we want. Like we want all the details. That's why we're all here, is because we want to know like what is in your brain and how did it come about in this book. I love how you did mention how you sprinkled the facts in, because I picked that up right away while I was reading this book. And there's just so many things that when you're doing field science, people have this vision of like you're just hanging out with animals all day. And having the reality of like, nope, it's pitch black. You can't see where you're walking on the beach. What would you say is like the biggest misconception that people have about sea turtles that you're often like trying to correct or trying to get more info out?
I mean, you mean about the biology or
in general, like what is one thing? I mean, I always think of back to like when I was a kid. There was a children's book. I can't even remember the name of the turtle, but he like wore his shell and like took it off every day. So like in my mind, that's one that I think of, like people think they can like leave their shell.
So yeah, I guess that's definitely, I mean, in general, what the shell is made of. I think a lot of people don't know that it's part of the skeleton, right? So, and also that there is, and that I would have said that actually, that people also, because they're reptiles, think they don't feel anything. So that means, when there is something, I don't know, even happening to them, that they don't feel pain or anything. So I think that is a big misconception, because the shell is part of their body, right? They definitely feel pain. They like being scratched or not so much. So for example, when I place my satellite transmitters and I get to the part where I'm removing algae, they usually don't like that much, because I think it's sensitive, right? So it's not something they enjoy all that much. Also, I mean, of course, a lot of us and the younger generations have grown up with the film Finding Nemo. So the biggest misconception is parental care in sea turtles, right? That is non-existent. So even less so the male. So there is no dad anywhere close by. And the moms are, as far as we know, also just pretty much burying the eggs and then they're off again. And all the babies have to fend for themselves. I think these are definitely some misconceptions that people have. And maybe another one that is also kind of the smarter misconception is that this idea that sea turtles return exactly to the beach they're born on. It is true to a certain extent, right? It's a certain region, and genetically, yes, we can see that, there is a gene pool that is similar and they travel very far to get to that region, but it's not like the babies that come here on a certain beach have been born exactly on that beach, because even females within one season are able to scatter their nests on several nesting beaches, which is smart. They've survived millions of years, and that way they make sure if something happens, it's not going to happen to all of their nests.
What about misconceptions for you as a sea turtle biologist? Do people make assumptions about you and your work a lot?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think definitely, I mean, I've mentioned that in the book, they think I'm just like, I don't know, hanging out on the beach, zipping some pina coladas on the palm trees, while also patting some turtles. So the first time anybody comes and visits me and just sees the amount of walking, especially here in Costa Rica, I know it's different in the US where you're allowed to drive like an ATV on the beach. But I mean, even if it would be allowed here in Costa Rica, it wouldn't be even possible. We have too many rivers, too much driftwood. So we walk a lot. I mean, we have beaches that are like 10, 14 kilometers long, and you don't only walk them once, right? You walk them, you try to cover once an hour those beaches. That is definitely one thing. I think from the general public, and what I get a little bit more annoyed about are the academics that think there's something better than as what they call turtle taggers, because I decided very consciously, even though I have a PhD, I think I've proven I'm a good scientist, to leave the world of academia as in the classical sense and kind of do my own thing, that it is less valuable what we are doing, right? So I'm trying to bridge this gap between activism / conservation and academia. I do believe very firmly that science is absolutely at the essence, scientific data to make good conservation decisions. But I'm not just interested in science just so I have something to publish, right? We're talking here about an endangered animal. And I'm also not in the category that I'm just letting myself be guided by pure emotions. I love my turtles, don't get me wrong, but we don't have the time and we don't have the money to, just kind of fool around trying stuff that we already know scientifically are not going to have any impact whatsoever, if that makes sense. So I think that's the other misconception, which is coming more from like my own ranks, I guess, than the ones from the broader public. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Very thorough answer. I see that, Liz, you have your hand up. So Liz, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I was wondering, how much of your work is at the beach with with the sea turtles versus collecting the information and putting it together and getting it out there. That's it.
Well, okay. So one of the reasons I left academia was that I was really not interested of just sitting in my office, training other scientists while I'm writing grants so they can do the fun stuff. So I like to be still on the pulse, especially because I've ventured more and more into this arena of science communication. And I think for me, it's really important to be authentic, right? And I feel I can only be authentic if I'm still somehow involved in the actual work. I know what I'm talking about. So I have, though, and I'm not going to lie, it has been quite a journey to find a good balance, which is also not stretching me so thin that because I had a serious burnout. I think Brooke and I talked about it like 2 years ago. We were in a similar situation. It's just when you just, take on too much because you want to do everything. So I would say my ratio right now is I'm trying to spend about a good third of my time doing the actual field work. That also involves mentoring students, for example, that are doing the field work. And then I am spending, the rest of the time communicating for the general public, because that's social media that is actually taking a lot of my time. Also, I haven't really been that active. I need to revisit that. I'm also, of course, trying to publish. So this has also been, but this is kind of a newer development of how I'm trying to separate my time, because I was definitely not having good balance. Because on top of that, I'm also doing administration for my, nonprofit organization. I am, doing a lot of other stuff such as podcasts and TV, And so all of that is time, right? So that is what people sometimes forget. So yeah, but I still, I'm in the lucky position. I live in this incredible country, Costa Rica. I really am here full time, and literally 3 minutes from here, even though I had to let that project go, I have sea turtles nesting, right? And my other part of that project, the in-water part, we are kind of going out whenever the weather permits. Yeah, so I think there's a still nice balance of everything, hopefully even better balance in future.
Thank you.
The never-ending struggle of like, how do we get everything done and still, feel fulfilled, but also supporting the animals. Absolutely. I see we have a question here in the chat that says, could you say a few words on your walk across Costa Rica? And also a question about how Fiona is.
Yeah, so that walk across Costa Rica was pretty much a result of all this, burnout, kind of trying to rebalance my life to figure out which things I need to let go of in future. I was like pruning the little tree of, all the branches that have spread out. It's like, okay, which have to go, which can stay and become stronger. Fiona's actually fine. So I cut it or nipped it in the bud immediately. I have to say, I don't want to go too much into details, but the setup wasn't ideal. And I think I caught that luckily in time, because it didn't give me any flexibility to manage. First of all, we didn't expect the heat that was there, because, you know, it was already the beginning of rainy season. So we had hope for clouds and rain. And just like the flexibility time-wise, that I could have said, no, I'm going to sit out the hottest days of the hottest hours of the day, because Fiona cannot walk on asphalt or whatever not. So I made the decision that she needs to go home, and she's fine. I mean, she was probably just sad that she couldn't tag along, but yeah, she was. I mean, she had some. It wasn't like any serious, but she had some paw sensitivity. Those of you that have followed my story, and but she's fine, lying here behind me. I'm actually surprised she's not bothering me right now.
That's always the fun part, is when everyone's like pets make their appearance in the video. So fun. My dog's in the other room right now as we speak, so I totally get it. My other question that I have for you is kind of, this one's like a bit of a thinking one, but if you could go back and speak to the younger version of yourself when you first arrived in Costa Rica all those years ago, what would you tell her?
To be braver, to not lose herself in the expectations of other people in her, especially, you know, there is a certain, of course, expectations for women around here, which I try to emulate or try to adhere to, and it was really bad, because I'm just not that person. I'm just not a very soft-spoken Jane Goodall. I'm a very German, intense, opinionated person, and of course that is not always, you know, how the culture here works. Honestly, I think also how men don't like women to be a lot of times. I also think that not hiding in the jungle for too long, which is, you know, I have thought a lot about the past probably year, you know, where I see my place in the future, because I do have this incredible platform and I'm getting all these insane and cool opportunities to speak on behalf of sea turtles. But what a lot of people don't know about me, I'm an extreme introvert, actually. So I'm, you know, it takes a lot of energy to just be out there with people all the time. And, you know, I was quite content just, you know, being in the jungle, doing my thing. But I can also not, you know, hide from the fact that the world has changed. And if I want to really have an impact on my turtles, which I feel I owe them somehow, I need to speak out about the things that are not in my control anymore, but are definitely in the control of the collective us, right? So the lifestyles that I've already mentioned. So yeah, I think just like, you know, maybe not hide out, maybe be brave, and also not let certain opportunities slide by, and network a lot earlier. I think that's also something I've started very late in life, networking and nurturing connections, just for the sake of that they could be useful, because I don't like these transactional things. I still am not good at it. If I don't like you, I don't like you. I can't change it, even though if you're really important. So that has closed a lot of doors. I don't know if I really want to change that. A lot of people say I should, but so difficult.
I can imagine that. And in this world, you know, there's all sorts of people. So always different types of people. But I do see that, Rosemary, you have your hand up. So go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, so first of all, I wanted to say, when I saw in the book that you did your master's at the University of Würzburg, that was cool, because I'm also doing my master's at the University of Würzburg.
Cool.
And I had no idea. So I'm really interested in your journey from becoming more of an activist from the academic side. And I was wondering if you could talk about, like, if your video hadn't gone viral and it didn't push you into a social platform, do you still see yourself more in the science communication and activism side? or do you think you would have stayed in research mainly?
Well, that's a difficult question because there's a lot of if, could, what. I don't know. I mean, I think the last part, I don't know what would have happened for my non-viral video, because when I tell my origin story or my conversion story, whatever you want to call it, it's I'm really more of an accidental storyteller, because it was really through this video that I was pushed into this limelight. And to be quite honest, for the first 3-4 years, I really didn't even know what to do with it. There were actually a lot of opportunities that I let slip by. I think I could be already in a very different place right now if I would have gone all in, but I was treading very carefully and very unsure of how to even use it. Plus, I had an academic advisor that thought it was completely worthless what I was doing. He always called it my extracurricular activities. That I needed to cease doing because I needed to concentrate on my PhD, because that's the important thing, and all that counts are publications, and this is the currency of how I will be judged. And so it was very conflicting, if that makes sense, because I really didn't set out. I mean, I became a biologist because, like I said already, I'm an introvert. I can deal with animals better than I can deal with people, and science is really, it is the area where we nerdy people hang out, kind of doing our thing, don't have to communicate a lot. And, it's also okay if you're not the best communicator. But I guess I am also, at the same time that I'm an accidental storyteller, I think I have realized that I am a natural storyteller, because even when I gave back in the day scientific presentations, the comments, the feedbacks I always got was, wow, that was a really well done presentation, because I was able to break down, the itty nitty bitties into really, accessible, ways. And I would always find the story arc, even the most boring topic. So I don't know if I would have also gone into science communication. I think it was an opportunity, because I also don't know, there is a lot of people out there that call themselves science communicators that really, I don't know if they do that much science communication, but as a woman especially, I don't even know if people would have listened to me, if it wouldn't have been for this video, for the platform it gave me. So yeah, I don't know if I would be doing it. I am enjoying it. I think I'm also decently good at it. That's kind of interesting. Not that I ever wanted to do it, but I have finally embraced it, I think, which I was struggling with in the first years, if that makes sense. Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And my other question would have been if you received pushback from the scientific community for doing that, which you also kind of answered. So thanks for that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think now, I think there is a divide between the younger generation and the older generation. So the older generation doesn't see the value of social media at all. And then you have the in-betweens like me that, haven't really grown up with social media, but see the value. We're struggling to kind of keep it alive and use it. And then you have the young generation that completely are all in. They know how to use it. They're really good at it. But the thing is, I mean, that's a reality. Linear television is going to become extinct. Social media is where most people get their information nowadays from, right? So as much as my colleagues want to criticize it and want to stick to the old publication system, that is not going to be the new world. And at some point, I also had to decide, well, all of my colleagues know already what I'm talking about, right? It's not something, I mean, this book was not written for my colleagues. I mean, all of that knowledge they have already as a sea turtle biologist. So I want to kind of get people in that haven't yet been part of this whole thing. And that is another learning. I really don't care if my colleagues are not on board with that. That's their problem. I published in really good papers. That was my mic drop for now. I'm going to keep on publishing with my students and my own stuff, but I don't feel I am as keen of their approval of that world anymore, because my livelihood doesn't really depend on it anymore. Yeah.
Katie in the chat has a follow-up question that kind of goes with this, I think, because obviously you've faced lots of challenges, and you wrote about all of this in your book, but her question is, through all these challenges you've faced, what has kept you committed to this work? And how did you know that sea turtles weren't just an interest, but your life's calling?
That's also a good question. I think I had something, and I do say that in the book as well, that I don't think I was able to even put it into words before I was thinking about it, but I always had something that got me out of bed every morning, right? There was always this, I think I have this very inherent feeling of justice that needs to be served somehow, which can be really annoying if you're with me. It's always about, equal and just and whatever not. And I was always, as long as I can remember, an ocean lover, right? I loved just the environment of the ocean. And I still love humpback whales, for example, and cetaceans and whatever not. And I don't necessarily think that, sea turtles needed to be my calling. I think they just happened to be one, also because I feel they're almost like the witnesses of what's happening to my beloved ocean, right? So it's the indicators, it's the lens through which I was able to experience the ocean. And I feel very indebted to those creatures, and very much, I feel guilty also. And I felt also, at least back when I started, this is fixable, right? I felt that this is fixable. And I don't want to bum anybody else, but I've had, especially in recent years, definitely more of depressions where I was thinking this problem is becoming way bigger than just some people stealing eggs on the beach, but this is, a world that needs to change, and I don't know how to help that along, which sometimes seems too big to chew, and really, bums me out as well. And I'm trying to see how I can work through that, because I don't want to pretend it's always rainbows and unicorns. It's just really not, and it's an ultra marathon, if you want. So because you need to see and feel how you can motivate yourself, even though you feel everything is set against you, the animals you're trying to protect. I mean, there's community. That is one thing that always keeps me going. But I don't want to say that this is like, I wish I had the solution. I just don't. I mean, sometimes my synapses are running hot, just kind of trying to come up with the ultimate solution. So I know I went a little bit on a tangent, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It could have also been humpback whales. I just enjoyed, I think, working with sea turtles a lot more than with cetaceans. I like the work. I like the bridge between terrestrial and in water. I like the physicality of it, the walking, just, I work with cetaceans, and it's just hanging out on a boat. It's, for some people that might be nice, but it's really not what I enjoy that much. I really like the work with turtles. I love turtles.
I love turtles too. I think we all do, all of us here, yeah. I love how you talked about that, like, terrestrial to ocean overlap, because I feel like there's a couple species that get to do that, where they're on land and on sea, and it kind of gives us that insight into both. And I think it's also a nice reflection on humans too, humanity, and our ability to enjoy the ocean, but also enjoy being on land. So I love that comparison. I'm going to kind of take it back to sea turtles mating, because I witnessed them in the ocean off of a boat, and I was thinking about how you and your team separated them, got them onto a boat, got them back to shore to then study them. I'm just like mind blown by that, because they're huge and they're so heavy. How do you actually manage to do that field work, to get them onto a boat? Like, it sounds challenging. Yeah.
No, I mean, it also depends on the species, right? I don't know which species you saw. I'm assuming it was loggerheads or greens, probably, or did you actually see a
Definitely greens. Definitely
Okay.
greens.
Well,
Yeah.
greens are manageable still. I mean, it's definitely more than one person that has to, do it. Also, because when you catch them, well, it starts off how you catch them. So sometimes we catch with hands. And so that means that turtle can just drag you through the water if you're not careful, because they are pretty strong swimmers. And that means you have to kind of make sure that you get to the surface and the flipper's out of the water. And then you definitely need help to bring it to the boat. Or you do the nets, right? So the tangle nets are a different way of how you capture them. And then you have to have about 2 or 3 people in the water pushing, and about 2 people in the boat that are kind of pulling the turtle in. And then we have little harnesses where you can fixate the front flippers so they're not bitch slapping you around, because that is also something that is, they are very strong. I mean, I have had my fair share of bruises, and the trailing edge of the flipper is razor sharp, so they can literally like slice you open. And there's also the mouth, depending on which species you're working with. Hawksbills especially can deliver nasty bites. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest or bigger challenge are actually leatherbacks. So leatherbacks are the ones where you need very specialized equipment on little trays that can be from the water kind of lifted up. Similar to, I don't know, well, I mean, you do sharks, right? So you know probably the Osage ship that have these kind of watering, yeah. Exactly. I forgot what they call it in English, but this lifting thingies.
Yeah, it's like a lift gate kind of.
Exactly, something like that. So I know that they equipped some fisher boats with that in Canada, where you have them in water more than anything. So that is definitely more of a challenge. Or weighing a leatherback on the beach is also quite a action, because you have like a tripod type of thing and about 4 or 5 people pulling that animal up so you can get a reading. I mean, we're talking here 300 to 600 kilograms, right? So it's not really something that is easily done. But other than that, I just think in the field, yeah, you probably, I mean, when I had still my regular interns, one of the requirements is always you have to be able to lift a certain amount of pounds, because that is just, it is just what it is. I mean, if you can, then it's difficult to have you help at least restrain an animal even.
Alongside with that of like how many pounds you have to lift, what are some other skills you would say people need to have to be able to do this type of sea turtle work in Costa Rica or anywhere?
Well, I really believe that people sometimes have the wrong ideas, because we are already in a sector where salaries are not great. Not that I'm, aware, well, like, it's just a fact. It's not that I love it. It's just there is not a lot of money going around. And that means if I can find people that would do a certain type of works for free, why should I pay a salary, right? If I have 100 people saying, yeah, definitely going to do that for free, then yeah, I'm not going to pay somebody else a salary. Plus, if it's not really rocket science that I'm asking, right? Measuring a turtle is not rocket science. Tagging a turtle is not rocket science. So that means if you are planning and going into the conservation or sea turtle conservation sector and really wanting to make a career out of it, you need to be able to set yourself apart with skills that are absolutely necessary. And then we actually venture already in things like administration, bookkeeping, marketing, those kind of things, which are way more realistic probably to get you a job. Or if we're talking about analytical skills, right? So any type of GIS stuff, drone operation, lab work, any type of genetics, or also coding, like Python, those are kind of skills that are really, that not everybody has, but just kind of want to hang out with some baby turtles is unfortunately not going to make the cut, right? Also, just restraining an animal is also not really going to cut it. I mean, a good attitude always helps. I can tell you that, because sometimes people wonder why they don't get a job. And I said, well, I can tell you why you don't get a job, because you are a lazy butt. But that's the different discussion.
always such a good point, and something that is across the board in animal science in general. I love the part in the book too where you were talking about, well, I didn't love it because it was sad, right? The person who's like drinking the pina coladas and like not paying attention to the hot like little sea turtles that were hatching, and you had to like get that resolved. But it's like, that's, you know, how some people are, they just don't understand.
Well, I mean, it's also a lack of empathy. That is actually something that my academic colleagues have as well. They are so focused on the data that I sometimes see the handling of sea turtles happening that just drives me bonkers, because I don't care how important that data point is. That, you know, well-being of that animal, a sentient being, is definitely more important. So I don't freaking care if you only have so and so many days to get so and so many blood samples. But if you poke that animal already 5 times and you were too stupid to get the blood sample out, then, well, shit out of luck. I'm sorry. Then you should either ask somebody else or just let it go, right? I mean, that are also some things that are happening, definitely. And I mean, to be quite honest, right? That is another thing. So a lot of sea turtle people worked with sea turtles a very brief time in the field, when they did their master's, maybe when they did their PhD, at the most their postdoc, and then they transition in academia into a professorship. And that means most of their time they're not spending in the field. So even if they say, well, I've worked with sea turtles for 30 years, well, guess what? Of those 30 years, actually on the animal were maybe 2 or 3, 4 years, and that's it. And that has been maybe already 20 years ago. So that I noticed always, that I have been in the field for 20 years now on the animal, and I just know, like things like feasibility things, you know, where people say, well, this is possible, that is not possible. I think I have a way better idea if that works. And just general things that don't freak me out, you know, just kind of setting up a field season, knowing what's essential to make it run, being a MacGyver, making things do, you know, making do with what you've got in the field, things breaking or not working out as you thought it is. So that is definitely a huge difference to, you know, just academia, and also colleagues that maybe once upon a time have been working in the field but are not working in the field anymore.
Yeah, that I really appreciate you sharing that point, because it is something, another thing that is seen across the board, where it's like, you know, how do we create a better balance, which I know is a question you answered earlier. So it's hard, right?
Yeah. And I think there is very few people that kind of occupy the space in between, right? I feel you either or, and I don't think there's much in between, because you are in academia or you are on the beach, and a lot of times it's even locals, right? It's not even, or very early career people, right? So and the locals sometimes don't have the scientific background that, you know, some people have, and then there's already a friction between those two groups. And or you have these people that come from a totally different background, but they woke up one day, see themselves as Jesus, the personal savior of all sea turtles, and just because they've seen it somewhere that maybe doing a hatchery is a good idea, they're setting out, and I don't know, and you're like, this is such not a good idea. Can we talk about the actual, you know, they are best practices and protocols, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but they come with so little knowledge, right? But so much emotion and so much drive that it's very difficult to argue against them as well. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? I want to make sure I'm not taking up all of the airways here. Katie has another one. All right, here we go. If someone would be interested to attend one of your sea turtle field courses, what skills or requirements do they need to have? So you already mentioned lifting heavy stuff. What else?
Well, you know, for the sea turtle field course, though, it's not even a requirement, because, you know, I'm not expecting you to lift any turtles if you don't want to. I mean, this field course is actually meant to teach skills. So I'm also not requiring a huge amount of skills other than a good attitude and being comfortable in the outdoors. I think that is just, I don't even know if it's a skill, but it's definitely, if you want to be comfortable in the environment that we will be, you know, put into. But other than that, it's really about exactly all the things that I just talked about. I'm trying to, I don't know, I don't want to say raise a new generation, but somehow kind of at least mentor a new generation that is aware of these frictions that exist between science and conservation and emotion and academia. And there's a lot more conflicts and frictions. I mean, Western world against, or global South versus global North, that I would like people to be more aware of and integrate that hopefully into their career wherever they go afterwards.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? I know we're getting close to the end of our hour here. Time goes fast. Brooke told you, we warned you, it happens. You blink and it's almost over. Okay, I'll ask another one while people are thinking maybe. You have so many amazing field stories, and it was so fun to read about all of them. But was there like a field story that was funny that maybe, or maybe not funny, but just a field story that happened that never made it to the book? Because I'm sure that was hard to choose.
Well, yes, in fact, I wrote a lot more than eventually made it into the book. And we also decided on the creative freedom of sometimes if stories were too similar, with just little nuances, that we kind of meshed it into one big story. I mean, one example is, for example, where I'm describing how I'm finding, or like where I'm part of a seizure or a razzia here in Costa Rica, and we're finding live turtles. So that is actually 3 stories meshed into one, because it didn't just happen once. And, you know, the setup was a little bit different, but it was kind of, you know, little nuances that I wanted to have all somehow in there. And so we meshed it into one single story. To the other question, so yes, there were also anecdotes, not so much fun, actually a lot more on the sad, shocking side, that my editor was like, I don't think we can put that in the book. I don't think people will be able to handle it or to really fathom that this is real. And so I'm not going to tell anything about it, because I decided that I will very likely create a novel out of it. So these anecdotes that are a little bit too crazy, because I think people can handle it better if it's fiction than as if I would say this is what really happened. And I just noticed though how much of a therapy it was to write this book as well, because I mean, by now almost 20 years of sea turtle work, a lot of stuff that I've experienced, I can tell you there's a lot of stuff I still don't know how to cope with. And I think I need to write it out in one form or another. And I feel in a novel, I can also determine the narrative, you know, how that story ends, rather than in a nonfiction book. So yeah, so I'm not going to give it away.
Okay, keep your secrets.
It will be ever published, so we will know if anybody wants to have a novel of sea turtle biologist.
Awesome, awesome. We have another question in the chat from Biology Floyd. Given the threat posed to turtles and the ecotourism sector of the economy, are there laws or regulations related to single-use plastic in Costa Rica?
Yes, they actually are. And that was one of the results of my video as well. So a few years after, there were several countries that not just phased out straws, but a lot of single-use plastics. So Costa Rica decided a few years ago that you cannot bring single-use plastics into national parks and protected areas. Unfortunately, some are more strict about checking bags and, you know, making you take out whatever you have. That also includes any type of wrapping, like food wrapping, like if you have a bag of chips or crisps, that you cannot bring that inside. It also is related to not feeding wild animals, but it is also the actual law is because single-use plastic. So bottles, for example, PET bottles, any of that you cannot bring into protected areas. And to be quite honest, I'm, you know, I know there's not everything perfect in Costa Rica, but I'm quite proud of Costa Rica for being, you know, still considered a developing country. We are doing a lot better than, for example, the United States in some of those areas.
And it's good to have those examples where the animals are, but of course that does need to translate everywhere. Which is another reason why your book is so influential for all of us, I think. Any other questions from you guys? I'm seeing many smiling faces. I love it.
Can I ask a question if nobody's
please.
interested? Okay. So I'm actually sitting or thinking about another nonfiction book, which somebody asked me about if I would be interested of maybe, writing it. I just don't know if people really want to read it. So that's the thing. So I'm just kind of generally putting it out in this group because I feel you all at least, interested in conservation. So it wouldn't be so much about sea turtles, but it would be a little bit more about I want to call it, I don't know, it's a working title, like the human cost of conservation, so it's a little bit more the journey about how being conservation almost broke me and how I'm trying to get out of the hole and all the things that are not going well with conservation, kind of bringing it up. Would people be interested in reading something like that? Or do you think you just would be so bummed out that you really, I don't know, don't feel it? I mean, I'm trying to present solutions as well, but.
Yes, I'll read it, Christine.
Thanks, Dave.
I think I would definitely read it. I feel like a lot of us that work in this field, we personally battle these emotions all the time. We go into this because of passion. And when we're young and like in our young 20s, we think we're going to save the world. And then we're quickly humbled. And so I feel like if you come out with that and talk a lot about human cost too, and I mean, in my career too, I realized very quickly that it's actually more of a human story than a wildlife story when it comes to conservation. So, I mean, yeah, especially if you're like, if you mix in the hope and you mix in some of the solutions as well, or what we think might be a solution, then I feel like that would be like very impactful.
Because I think there is a lot of misconceptions about conservation as well, right? I feel that this is, not so much only the people that would be wanting to go in conservation, but even when I do my talks, people are always like, well, but you are getting funded by the government. I was like, which government is funding me? I wish, but that people don't realize of where money even comes from in conservation and why there is so little going around, right? So there's so many, I think, of those things that that exist. So I'm just trying to think if that would be something that needs to be written or not. I don't know. We will see.
Tracy, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question or comment?
I think your book definitely will be read. I think I work in schools with kids, and I think they very much want to make a change. I think they sometimes are very scared of going into science fields because they don't think they are good enough at math and science. And I think reading something that wasn't necessarily science-based would encourage other people to go into those fields and maybe to know the reality of the fun and the not so fun, but just just open a door to more people. So I think it definitely would be read. I think kids are very much wanting to go into those fields, and we just need to try every which way. So yeah, write the book. Please write the book.
Well, it's going to be like a kind of a reality check, maybe bringing people even more into the world of conservation from like a human perspective than just that book, I feel, not just sea turtles, but in general. And also maybe showcasing that you don't have to be a biologist to really make a difference, right? Because I don't know how many times I tell young kids, I was like, dude, become a great marketer or a fundraiser and then go into conservation, say no to the big salaries of the industry and just kind of, dedicate your life to conservation. Because, these are all the jobs that conservation still is investing money in, because it brings in more funds, it brings in more visibility and all of that, way more than the biologist, quite honest. So, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, one more thing. I definitely think we've done a little bit of a disservice that we've convinced most people that you have to be absolutely brilliant to go into any sort of science field. You have to be academically the top, and I don't think that's true. I think we need to, just encourage everybody that they can go into conservation, they can go into science, they can go into some form of the field.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Thank you, Tracy, for that. And then I do see Claudia, you have your hand up as well. Go ahead. It seems you're muted, Claudia. We can't hear you. Oh, no. Can anyone else hear Claudia? Thumbs up, thumbs up.
No.
Oh, dear. Do you want to type it in the chat and I can read it out loud for you? Great.
No, Claudia, we want to hear you.
I know. Technology.
Claudia sitting in Germany and sweating, 40 degrees in Frankfurt, the concrete hell.
Yeah, I heard there was a global climate change conference in London that got canceled because it was too hot. How interesting.
You know, and then we have some minister from Bavaria that just doesn't want to admit that climate change is human-made. I mean, this is, you know, these are the frustrations that I just don't, I mean, of course, in our bubble, we all agree, right? But we don't need to agree with each other. We need to get those people to agree with us and convince that things need to change. I don't want to freaking move to Mars. I mean, I've just recently, I think, was it National Geographic that had it on, even on their cover. Oh, how are we going to live on the moon and the Mars? I was like, I don't want to live there. I want to live on my beautiful blue planet, dude.
Do you hear me?
Yes! Yay!
I changed the microphone. Okay, hello, Christine. The point is that you know that I'm Rotarian, and we have 1.4 million Rotarians around the world. So I could recommend your book, and I'm sure they would read it. So, and I'm member of the new Environment E-Club Rotary Earth Network, and we will do whatever we can. So I'm sure that will work.
Although that outs me as a millennial, right? I have to do it like this, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, that would be amazing, you know, and you could even offer it in different languages. It's even in Korean now. So in case you have some Korean Rotarians. Yeah. Thank you, Claudia. I would appreciate it, definitely.
Amazing. Well, we're coming up on our hour, believe it or not. Wow, time just flies. I love it. I like to always wrap up with this question for all of our authors, because all of us here are bookworms. We like to read. That's why we're here, because we read books in general. And I know you mentioned sci-fi at the beginning, but is there something you're reading right now, or a favorite book of yours, Christine, that you would recommend we all check out?
Well, there's quite a few actually, but one book I have been recommending so many people in the conservation space, because like Brooke said, it's always a human story. And I'm actually going to grab it right now. That's not it. Because it taught me something. I mean, I think when I look at the most faces, we're all probably at least influenced by the global north. And it's the book, I know you can see it, it's called Poor Economics. It's by Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee. I think they're at MIT. I got the book when it first came out. I think these two have actually won a Nobel Prize in the meantime. So those two are investigating poverty. And, you know, I think we need to understand that a lot of, well, poverty, first of all, has something to do with climate change, with colonialism and all of that, but it also, you know, the challenges that we're facing in conservation have to do with poverty, right? So reading this book and also how to alleviate poverty is, I don't know, it's very, I feel it's very well written for a nonfiction book. I found it very captivating, a lot of examples. So I don't know how many times I've gifted that already in the conservation space. That's, I think, a really great book to just kind of, you know, understand more about poverty and how that works. And I think that is maybe treating one of the burning points right now. Other than that, I'm trying to think, nonfiction books, there's so many great ones out there. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to, because there's I mean, like in recent years, it would not be anything related to conservation probably, but and I always forget the author. I'm really bad with author names. One is called, but it's the same author. It's called Cutting for Stone, and the other one is The Covenant of Water. So these are two books I really enjoyed in the past years. And if you like nature writing, Kingsolver. I always forget if it's Barbara or Patricia. So she has some really great nature writing as well. Yeah, very well written. I like her a lot. So sorry, I read about 2 books per month, so sometimes it's difficult. I should probably keep a list of things that I enjoy. But I mean, these have at least have been stuck in my head for a while. Yeah.
Wonderful. I feel like those are also like the best ones to hear, the ones that are just kind of top of the mind.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending the hour with us and answering all of our questions. Brooke, I'm going to pass it to you to kind of wrap things up.
Well, yes, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Katie, for another amazing book club meeting. And of course, Christine, you're amazing. I was so happy and so grateful that you said yes to this book club meeting. It's like, it just made perfect sense. You've already been on the show. We have great connections. I love that you brought up sea turtles multiple times. Brad is a good mutual friend for all of us here. So thank you. And thank everybody for tuning in. By the way, we are getting ready to announce our next book. It's going to be in September. The meeting is going to be in September, and it's going to be a completely different topic than any book we've covered so far, which is very exciting. So we are working with the author right now to confirm the date, and we will let you all know when that's all confirmed and ready. But with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap up this amazing June Rewildology Book Club. And everybody, thank you for spending your Saturday with us, talking about sea turtles, meeting Christine, bringing your great questions. I can't think of a better way to spend the day. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And just because you guys read the English book, right? I just wanted to show you the beautiful life cycle that the German version holds. Can you see it? I guess you can't because it's blurred. Now you can. So I'm so sorry that they took it out of the English version, because the whole book is pretty much the chapters are following the life cycle of a sea turtle, right? So this was kind of the idea, and overlaying it with my life cycle. And I was so bummed out when they told me that they're not going to show it in color. So just wanted to show it as a little privilege for those that don't have the German version. Yeah, you can complain to my editor.
I mean, yeah, I feel like we've been gypped. It was beautiful, like opening to that. That would have been amazing. Wow.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
is so cool.
It is what it is.
Yep.
All right, everyone. We have a great rest of our Saturday, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you
Thank you
again,
all.
Christine. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye. Bye-bye.